Hello, audience, and welcome to another TV show review here on the channel, where I'm going to be talking about episode 1 of the new The Stand adaptation. Now, this was directed by friend of the channel, Josh Boone. I'm going to get that out of the way up front, because everyone's going to go back and see I interviewed him and be like, it's biased! No, I can criticize people I've met. I've definitely criticized books by authors I know. So, that's completely, I just wanted to get out of the way up front and move on. I also want to be distinct that this is only a review of episode 1 because that's all that's out and available to me. There are reviewers out there who have been privileged to see the show all the way to, I don't know what episode the latest person who's seen it's at, and there's been some criticisms brought up. I won't be able to say whether or not they're true, but what I can talk about is the opening for this latest Stephen King adaptation. And boy, oh boy, did I like it. It was quite tantalizing. And that's what a first episode needs to do, in my opinion. It needs to be a gigantic hook to grab you and pull you on up out of Bikini Bottom. The Stand is a difficult story to adapt for many reasons. Trying to do a direct adaptation without changing much is going to present quite a few hurdles due to the Stephen Kingisms and the way he writes. If we're being honest, it's just sometimes hard to realize exactly what he's describing, because as he's a master of horror, he knows when to pull back and not get into detail. But here, we have a super flu, right? That's the source of most gore and grotesque things happening. In terms of bringing a world to life that is suffering from a super flu, this pretty much killed it. I don't know how big the budget was for this show, but whatever it was, they used it quite well. It looks realistic, and the tension and the depression and the trying to remain human is already apparent just in this first episode. So kudos to that, and well done. I am somewhat concerned, of course, as a big Stephen King fan, seeing some diversions from the source material. It always just makes me go whenever you're adapting a classic like this. But I don't know how it concludes. I don't know what's going to work out and what's not. And so far, the changes are at least somewhat interesting. So getting that just out of the way, yes, it looks quite good, and it does deviate from the source material. Great. 2 check boxes, done, putting them in their little box, wrapping it up, sending it on off. It's gonna be late, it's the holiday season. Next up, we have the most obvious praising point for this as a whole, the cast. We've only met some of the characters, I haven't seen half the cast from the book yet, but the ones I've seen so far just seem immaculately well chosen. And Harold, wow, the school shooter vibes are... And Franny, honestly, all 3 of those, the main characters we've been introduced to, were just a little gift. It felt like true adaptations of those characters. And if you're a Stephen King fan, you know more than half the battle of adapting a King material is getting the characters right, because he paints such vivid pictures of personality that as an actor, if you're trying to capture it, you really need to hit home exactly what Stephen King's vision was. Each one of these, I just feel like slides very naturally into their portrayal. Harold probably most of all. He's immediately setting me on edge, to the point that yes, we get glimpses of some of the bigger baddie elements at play, but I was just fully invested and focusing on Harold at this point. And a surprise appearance from someone I did not know would be here, and I just as soon as saw them went, oh, because they're one of my favorite actors to see in this kind of thing. And it was just, hot damn, you got a lot of really big people here. Hello. I also did want to add that I wish this episode, what had happened in the narrative here for episode 1, had been split into 2 full on its own. It felt a bit hurried to me. And it felt like it could have benefited from writing it to be an actual, okay, here's the setup for this thing, and then here's the setup for that. And that way it's pulled into 2 separate, fully focused narratives. There was a little bit of I want more, but it felt like the pacing was go, 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 we have to finish this at certain points, and that bugged me a tiny smidgen. Some of the reviews that have seen later on episodes do make me a bit hesitant about the structure of the show. There seems to be some negative reviews about how there is a flashback element. So far for the first episode, hasn't bothered me much. This might be one of those cases where if you've read the book, you will be at a pretty hefty advantage in terms of enjoying the show than if you have not. So if you're one of these people who has not read The Stand, which do it, go ahead and yes, do it before watching the show. Tone is going to be something that they're going to have to maintain for this show, and it's a bit difficult because already in this first episode, because they're kind of doing this flashback setup, you get this darkest, oh no, what's happening? Like, it just starts scenes moving into the trying to survive, and then there seems like the, okay, we've built some form of civilization, which if you're not aware, that's kind of the arc of the book, and they're kind of chopping it up and rearranging it. I can see why you'd want to do that, and I'm sure it will pay off in a narrative sense for a TV show where you have to condense so much. But I'm worried tonally how much it's going to kind of be awkward to be flipping between them, but it didn't bother me in this first episode. I'm definitely just very well hooked. The first episode did that for me. I really wish I could get to see more of these episodes faster, but instead you'll probably end up seeing a seasoned review from me once the show is completely finished, and I will be getting that to you down the road. This is more just a first impressions from the first episode, and I like how it's setting off, especially the gore and the repulsion, looking at what they've done for the super flu. It's definitely ballsy of CBS to release a show like this while we're currently in the middle of a pandemic, and the payoff is, for some people, gonna be worth it. Some people are gonna like the fact that they're actually being like, no, we're in the middle of a pandemic, here's a super flu show. Others are not gonna wanna watch it because of that, because it's too close to the real world that we're in. And I get both. I just think it's something that will be talked about for a long time, that CBS released a super flu show while COVID is happening. I'm going to have my full review out for y'all in like 8 or 9 weeks. So yeah, go ahead and check back in for that. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.